Hello, everyone. This is Sanjay here with my friend Gloria. We're at
Hello.
Starbucks here, and we were just talking about pets and kids. Now, Gloria, is there a difference?
Oh my word. Tons of difference. Tons of difference.
Why is that?
Hmm.
I've never
Well,
had kids. I've only supervised them once at a battered women's shelter.
pets don't talk back.
They don't?
And you don't have to send them to college. That's true. It's true. You have to get them braces.
That's true.
You know,
But
it
they
just,
do chew up couches and they do chew up a
they
lot.
do. On the other hand, children wreck cars and cost tons of money. Cost tons of money. And they do talk back.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the costing a lot of money because it's 418,000 that I checked from 0 to 18. But Gloria, I need people to have kids because how would I teach otherwise?
Well, that's true, but I suppose I'm saying it's just not for everyone. And if you were to give me the option, I'd say I'll take the puppies.
Why is that? What
Okay.
are some other advantages?
To having a puppy?
Well, versus kids. Or what
Oh,
about cats? Any difference?
well, I'm allergic to cats, so we'll just leave those out. But I suppose for some people, particularly working people, cats great. They don't need as much attention. But a dog, you will have mm, love that's pure, true, loyal, and never ask you for anything but love in exchange. Now, your child will ask for your car, your home when you get to that age, and all your possessions when you pass on. And a dog doesn't do that. They don't expect anything.
That's
So
very
that's what I.
interesting. But you seem like a very loving mother, though.
Oh, yes, I have children and I love them to death. But if you took me back and I had to start all over again, I'd have two puppies.
Well, let's make sure we change your name for the video clip then. We'll call you something else so your kids don't see this. Just kidding.
Oh,
But,
they know.
but, but,
I told them all the time. Oh, geez, I wish I would have had puppies.
but, let, but Gloria, let me ask you this. I understand, I ask everyone like that I run into, I ask them, do they feel that they would do anything differently if they would have kids or not have kids? And they said no, because when they have kids, they said that it's no longer about themselves. Isn't that true? That you become more self-actualized? That you have kids and you have to take care of somebody, and they say it's different from having a pet.
That's
They,
true.
explain.
You learn a lot because you're then suddenly in the position of having to teach and be a model. So, of course, you're not a model for your dog. No matter what you do, it's fine with them.
You mean no matter what mistakes you make?
Correct, correct. So you try not to do that when you have children. You want to set a good example. Uh, you want them to grow up to be fine, decent, all these things like this. And, that is a job. That is a full-time job. And I really don't recommend it to anybody who doesn't have all the time put into it.
What I'm impressed with is I'll have students, for example, that manage households. They'll
Yes.
study, they'll work, they'll do 3 or 4 things, be involved with their community. They'll do different things. That's 4 roles, 5 roles. Sometimes I wonder how they do it all. So, I mean,
Well, it's not. My feeling on that is, I think that's wonderful, and they're young, but they're not always going to be young, and you sort of have to think ahead.
mhm.
What you're going to drop off. When I got to have time for quote me, and that period does come in your life, and you do think that. But I've got some time for me because I'm so busy. I don't have any right now.
Well, this is interesting because what she's also hitting on is there's research by David Myers. I attended one of his workshops, and he told us about the 0 to 18 factor in positive psychology. That they did survey research. His team of researchers found that people were happier before they had kids, and then after age 18 when they left home. He was assuming, well, the
Yes.
people that he interviewed had the kids go directly to college at 18, which isn't always the case. It depends. Some people go to the military or other sorts of things first.
Yes.
But what he said is that they reported a dip in happiness from 1 through 18. Do you agree
It's
with his research?
Yes, I do, because I think at that point they're assuming responsibilities. that they never had before at age 18. Okay. Before that, the parent were responsible for their activities and actions. All of a sudden, the burden of all that is on them.
But wouldn't you,
So that affects your level of everything.
but Gloria, wouldn't you say you've become more nurturing as being like? I mean, you seem very empathetic, very kind-hearted, and just in
Thank you.
the time that I've known you.
Thank you.
So, do you think you became that way because you were a parent, or were you already that way beforehand, or what has happened as a result of having kids?
I've learned to be more patient.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, More devious too. Sorry, but just a fact. It's
I'm sure you're a wonderful parent.
well, I think we all would like to think we are. Yes, you do your best. You can't expect any more than that because they don't come with booklets. They just don't. And everyone's different.
But
So
do you also agree that parents learn as much from their kids as kids learn from them? In a way, it's a two-way street.
yes, to a degree.
Hmm.
To a degree. To a degree. And then you kind of think, my gosh, I raised a child I can't figure out. And then you get all depressed.
Well, let me ask you this: do you sense that there were changes in the developmental cycle, psychologically, or social psychologically, or even sociologically, in terms of the kid from 1 to 3, 3 to 5,
And the
5 to 7?
small children, as they went up.
What?
Yeah,
How
social
has your
development.
kids changed? Like over? What did you notice in terms of sensory motor thinking, psychosocial development? You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, or
Pretty
abstract
much,
thinking?
but obviously my children have grown and gone.
Hmm.
Okay. So as they're coming up, I didn't really think about it until they hit like their preteen teen years, which point they know just about everything. Um, and then their later teen years when they actually know more than I did. And
They're bright, aren't they?
that
These 3 or
I
4 year
didn't know
olds
I
are
was.
they're
Oh, the
on
little
computers,
ones?
isn't it amazing?
Oh, I think that's wonderful. Although, frankly, I'd rather see them outside riding tricycles. I'd rather see them outside swing on swing. I don't like to see them with electronic devices. Uh,
I wonder what electronic devices Miss Gloria is referring to. Could be something like a BlackBerry. Could it? Maybe she's
oh,
talking about the iPhone.
well, even for little tiny children, they have pretend computers. Push this button and it'll talk to you. But you don't have to physically do anything. They're just pushing buttons.
But
You
then,
see what I mean? It doesn't. I mean, what do you really learn from that? What if the
well,
button doesn't work?
but Miss Gloria, wouldn't you agree that we also have grown up in a post-industrial society driven by information services and technology? So the kids
Yes,
have to begin from that in order to get us to the next level. Would you say, or why is it that people aren't going outdoors as much as they used to?
because of what you just said. The post-industrial. It's important, no matter how technologically advanced we are, that they get out, get the exercise, get the learning. What if your technology shuts down on you? How are you going to be able to figure out how to add, um, how to read a book, go to the library and get a book and actually research something? How do you do these things without technology? You know that. You've got the answer to everything. Then you go to your technology and you go, oh, this is great. It's so easy. But you should know how to do it the other way first. That's my opinion. Right?
But
Not necessarily a fact, but my opinion.
But let me ask you this: what advice would you give to an expectant parent growing up into today's world? You said your kids are grown up and they moved out of
Yes.
the house.
Yes.
So as far as now, what advice would you give? Not replacing this is not replacing anybody's advice professionally outside of this YouTube clip, but what would you suggest?
That are expecting children. Oh, gee.
How would they function well in this type of world, this society?
Give them a mixture of things. What they You'll learn pretty rapidly what your child is interested in, uh, just by what they choose as toys, their topics of little conversation. Go with that. Don't try to lead them the path that you think will be right for them, but let them choose their own path
How
and
early do
encourage them.
how early do you notice that they pick their own path? How have you
They pick
noticed?
it fairly early. I had two girls. One just loved to play with dolls and loved all the little girly things. The other one thought the dolls were for taking apart and laying out the pieces and then putting them back
Sounds like an
together again.
engineer there.
So at solver, so this is the kind of thing that. So I began to buy her different sorts of toys. Now, remembering that they were only 2 years apart, we're going to compare toys. It never bothered either of them that one got the babies and one got and the other one got the set of blocks and the. So you can pick that up pretty early, and you got to go with. You can't force a little girl to carry a doll baby, and you can't force a little boy to play football either. If he
That
picks up a doll, let him pick up a doll.
they'll choose what they want to
They
do.
do, and you spot it fairly early. So you want to give them guidance, but you mostly want to give them support.
What about financial preparations? Do you think that if somebody's going to have a daughter, or let's say somebody's a single parent versus somebody in a dual income household, do you think there's differences in planning for the kids, or can it be? Does it? I've usually heard that from the time the kid is born they open accounts, but should it
This is a
happen
good
even
idea.
before then?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do that. Teach them when they get an allowance. Buy them a piggy bank. It's a little piggy bank. And when they get money, and they will, uh, teach them, put some money in that little bank. You know. And when they get old enough, you walk them, if you can. It depends on where you live. You walk them to the bank. You have a little account for them. Put your names on it too. And show them, oh, look how much money you saved, And they get a feeling of accomplishment. It's a good feeling. Keep a little for yourself, whatever, candy, or I guess yogurt buds these days.
So, do you think that
Yeah,
this?
save. Teach them to save right away. It's so important. And that doesn't matter if you're married or not married. Single, parent, double parent, doesn't matter. Same rule applies.
And also, I've heard another thing is conflict resolution skills, communication skills, that we need to teach kids how to set boundaries, communicate, respect differences, and do a lot of things early
Yes.
on, and then also find their career path early on, maybe, rather like you were encouraging early on, so
That's true.
they can build from that.
Well,
What do
as
you
far
think?
as building the social skills,
Uh,
it's really important to go out, smile. Your child will follow what you do. You're their example.
what
So
do you?
if you're a smiling, happy person instead of a grumpy, come on, let's go, your child's going to kind of follow what you do, follow your example. So you want to be sociable, you want the child to be sociable. Personal interaction is important. It's ultra important.
What are your thoughts on bullying? Why does it happen? Why is it prevalent? Is it more prevalent now, you think, than in
No,
the past? And what do you think
it's
should be
always
done?
been around. Bullying has always been around. It's nothing new. It's just in the papers more. Um,
What can
because,
parents do to protect their kids? Many times they don't even tell their parents, the kids.
well, that's a good question because, I have to stop back and think when my girls were young and were they ever bullied? And the question, yes, they were. Uh, they came home and told me, but of course, in those days, I would simply say, well, you certainly ought to know how to handle that. And from that, they gathered, I will answer you back. And, in life, it's sad but true. A lot of times we gotta fall down, find out what that's about, and then you learn to stand up.
I think a lot of times the administration doesn't know or get involved, and so the environment is created not by intention, but I don't think sometimes enough is done in schools. It
Well,
shouldn't even exist. Why does it
this
exist?
is the problem that teachers shouldn't have to deal with.
Right.
This is a problem that parents needed to deal with.
It's a very
This
interesting
is
point.
not a school problem. It is a parental problem. Period.
So the parents should be held accountable in some way.
Absolutely. These children, and most of them were very young. I don't think anything of it. Being kids.
I mean, I've heard stories where people were bullied for different things based on gender, race, ethnicity.
Yes.
I've
Well,
heard
too
stories of
skinny,
religion
too
or
heavy.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, different.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Anything.
It, it's
It's Alex is going to throw us out.
Alex, how are you doing? We were just having a great time with the interview. Well, we still have some time, right? 9:30. 9:30. All right.
Okay.
So we got a few more questions. We can still go on, right?
Sure.
This is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now the next question is, when is the right time to have kids? Because I hear people having them. Some have them as teenagers, as adults, young adults. I have 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I've heard different ages. Is there a better time, and if so,
Yes.
why? I mean, the research does say something about it, but I don't want to say it first. I want you to.
My opinion is have the children when you're younger. Um, there's a lot of health reasons why for both the child and the mother.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the energy to keep up with the child. If you wait until you're 40, so on and so forth, you're not going to have the energy.
But we were talking about how 50 to 70 is the new middle age, right? If it's the
Maybe.
new middle age, then why not?
It's not for that. Not for parenting. It might be the new middle age for many other things, but not
Parenting
for
takes
parenting.
more energy.
It's definitely. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's physical. It's mental. It's all the things you can do when you're on your toes in your 20s or early 30s.
And if you think about it, in some ways, as a parent, and I appreciate what my parents have done, my stepmom especially, and also, obviously my biological parents, But what do you, and just everybody, mentors, role models, and things in my life. My question is, do you think then in some ways we got to really look at the responsibility? We're raising somebody for the next generation, aren't we? It's a big,
Yes.
it's a big deal, isn't it?
It's a big responsibility. And of course, when you're in your 20s, you're still learning your own self. But it's funny how you will get onto something right away because you know what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to guide your child, teach them, take them down the right road. So, no, I really, my personal opinion, hope this doesn't offend anyone, but as a mother, I really think that if you're 40, forget about it. It's going to take a toll on your body. It's going to take a toll on your nerves. And how old will you be when you're just graduating high school? There's a lot of things to think about.
You could have the kids skip a few levels, maybe, and then that could work. I mean, isn't that right? If you had the kids jump through all the honor courses and AP courses, and then just have.
See, you said the biggest little word in the dictionary. If. You can't go with if. Okay.
So, what advice would you give to somebody that, let's say, finds themselves? Obviously, this isn't replacing any kind of other advice. By the way, the research shows that after age 35, they said that's the.
Yeah.
They said that at that point,
It's dangerous.
they said that they're financially stable with the career. That if you get stabilized first in your career, then have the kids. They said you'll provide a better financial base, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
Well, hey, how are you?
Running around looking for you.
Okay.
I was just at your house.
Were you?
Yeah.
Well, Miss Gloria, it has been a
yes,
pleasure. Thank you.
Sanjay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the
Put this
interview.
on the web.
Absolutely, and I'll send
Great.
you the link.
Send me a link.
And
Okay.
say goodbye to everyone. Let's thank her,
Bye-bye.
Miss Gloria.
I hope you agreed with some of my opinions.
All right,
Thanks, Sanjay.
thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do it again sometime.
We
This
will.
is a great, it was a lot of fun. No, it's no problem. I mean, they're closing up anyway.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting,
Yes,
wasn't it?
send it to me. That was fun.
All right, I'll definitely do that. Next time you're here, I'll share the
You
link with
notice
you.
I'm not shy.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, right here.
Thank God I got keepers.
Thank you so much. So, appreciate it, Gloria. So, Amy, any thoughts on kids? Alex, any thoughts on kids?
I'm sorry.
Any thoughts on kids, having kids?
I think overpopulation is a real issue, and I'm not going to contribute to producing more children.
That's true. Overpopulation. That's true. Then there are a lot of people that may want to be adopted. That's absolutely true. That's a very good point. We didn't discuss that. There is overpopulation, and there are kids that may need to be adopted. So I appreciate that. This is very interesting. So, but I think that not having children, but having supervised them, in one of my internships, as I explained before, and just from appreciating parents in general, it's just quite an incredible challenge to have kids, but you're really raising the next generation. And you heard from Miss Gloria, and you're that's true, Alex. So Alex, you mentioned that absolutely that the population is growing, and you got to make sure we balance the resources that are out there. It is true, and there are other issues that we could examine too. We don't have a lot of time. They're actually going to be closing up here in just a little bit. But the other thing I wanted to say is that there's no difference between adopting a kid and having your own kid, quote unquote own kid. What they found is that bonding is external. It's the feeling of the oxytocin, and I hit on this in another video, that the oxytocin, the lower levels of testosterone, and what happens is that creates the feeling of bonding. But you can have that bonding with any baby, and believe it or not, because the babies first go through generalization, then discrimination. Generalization meaning they look at mama, dada, and they don't discriminate. Discrimination meaning discerning who's the primary caregiver and who's not. So that takes some time. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that your baby doesn't learn to walk. Believe it or not, your baby has a certain maturation. Baby automatically walks, assuming that the leg muscles are not atrophying. So what's interesting is the Hopi Indians, there's research on this, West House Publishing Educational Company, I think it's West Educational Publishing Company, has a PowerPoint on this, where the Hopi Indians have, their young strapped on backs, especially on the reservations. And the kids automatically, the little babies know how to walk at precisely the right time. A lot of people see them stumbling and falling, and they think that's learned and practiced. It's not. It's automatically through. Maturation. So it was very interesting to get Miss Gloria's perspective on it. And again, this is not replacing any kind of professional advice or your own perspective or what you've learned. But I just thought it was interesting to ask somebody who actually had kids of her own, and just to get her general advice and feedback. It's always interesting, and it's also interesting to use some sociological ideas, psychological and social psychological ideas kind of mixed in, and developmental psych especially, and then get just feedback and perspectives. But the thing is, what we know is that kids are absolutely wonderful. They are the next generation, and it is interesting how she did compare pets and kids, and some people don't like that, some people do. They're not the same from what I understand, but I think when you have dogs or cats, they're very similar to people that don't have kids. But then what I've heard is that when you have kids and you have pets, they tend to be very similar. They tend to be very similar. So the pets and the kids tend to be very similar, and in terms of how people react, but people usually say they've had pets, then they'll have kids, and then the kids obviously not replace the pets, but they grow in importance. This is your flesh and blood. So it was an interesting kind of discussion here, but we looked at pets, we looked at kids, and we looked at developmental cycles, advantages to having kids or not having kids. And obviously it's a highly personal situation and decision. Obviously, parents are the future, right? Having kids are the future. Without having kids, the society is going to fall. Literally, you're not going to have the next generation. Who am I going to teach? Or who's going to function in our society? We've got to create a new generation, right, for civilization to go on. So there's no getting around that. Obviously, if people didn't have kids, where would our society go? So, and yes, like the others said, that there may be overpopulation and maybe adoption is a wonderful option. You can offer a wonderful home for a kid. There's a lot of families that can. That is something to definitely consider right here in the U.S. and overseas. But it's something to think about. It's just fascinating. And as you also learn too, there's no right age to have the kids. Although the research shows that the later that the parent has the kids and the more solid they are in their career, the more financially easier it is for them to have the kids. But that's just research. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed this kind of video blog on this topic. It was a new one, and it was the first time that I've interviewed someone on this, got her permission obviously, and I'm putting it there for you to view. If you want to comment and share your thoughts on being a parent or a pet owner, and is that the same, is it different? What are your thoughts on maybe what she thought or what you've heard as far as having kids, not having kids? Are pets equal to kids or not? Developmental psych milestones, you've heard her say a few of them. I thought she was an awesome parent, by the way. Just her demeanor, I've known her for a while now, and she's always here. I'll go to Starbucks and I'll see her, and she's just a fascinating person. And I love having these real-life conversations, unbiased, respectful, and educational at the same time. So listen, I'm signing out. They're closing up. So have a great night. Thank you for watching, and share your feedback and comments below.